and welcome to a different sort of video today. Last weekend I did the first leg of the Glyndwr way and I thought it might be interesting to show you in depth what I took with me. And I'll start off with this bag. Can't actually remember who it was by, I'll try and find out. But this is a 45 plus 5 litre backpack, bringing it up to 50 litres. I'm not quite sure how that works out. Well, I know that they add up. It comes in with a rain cover in the bottom, so it's water resistant but not waterproof. I didn't use the rain cover. What sort of material it is? It's quite a fine weave. This is brilliant. I use it for camps all the time. I manage to fit everything in usually. It's all good. We've got deep pockets on the sides. We've got straps to hold long things in. There's these loops which I think are for walking poles. That's what I used them for anyway. Well, those two anyway. And then I had my tripod in that side, which I didn't end up using, so I could have saved some weight there. Lots of ways to strap things onto the outside as well. I've strapped a tent onto the side before now, like a bedroll just above the shoulder straps, and on here I've had another bedroll actually. So, or I could put a tarp on there. It's all very good. Lots of pockets in the top here. So this top pocket here, I like to keep this time I kept my water filter, but just something that I want to be able to get at quickly. On the inside there's another pocket, and here I tend to keep my batteries and things for all my recording equipment. There's a very deep main pocket with elasticated envelope here. That's where I kept the hydration bladder. Pocket on the front here for I put the first aid kit in that this time, but just for things that you don't want to be rooting around for. And then on these hip supports there are two more pockets. I had a few bits like a recording equipment and a light, a torch in there. I really like this pack. It's very comfortable. There's a sternum strap here with a buckle that doubles as a whistle, so if you get into trouble, I suppose. And then you've got the hip straps as well. I only got 2 bags currently. And the other one is more of a sort of urban backpack. That one's a bit small. Now the issue that I had with this one is that it was too big for a day hike. It was massive. I ended up using about half of the space in it. So it would have been useful if I was doing an overnighter perhaps, but then I wanted to keep the weight down on the trip. The weight in the end was just over 11 kilos with everything I took. One of those kilos was the backpack itself. Yep, this backpack here weighs a kilo on its own. So without the backpack I was carrying 10 kilos. Next we'll go over the waterproofs I took, because I was pretty sure I was going to need waterproofs. So I've got this jacket here. This was a relatively recent purchase. Outdoor Sports, just a waterproof, slightly padded jacket. It was a bit warm actually for what I needed, but I wouldn't suggest just wearing this in the winter. There's no real padding to that. It just keeps the rain and the wind off. The pockets are all like storm guarded, if you like. They all have flaps to keep the rain off them. This one's got one of those special zips where it all cinches up so that the wind and the rain can't get in there. A zip-on hood, which I took off, which is here. So I took it with me, but I took it off because I was wearing my hat. And this has a draw cord so you can pull it up around your face. It's got a little vent here in the back on the back flap here, just so that you've got a bit of breathing. Yeah, kept the rain off, kept the wind off. I took this with me as well. It was a cheap, really cheap, non-breathable pair of over trousers that are waterproof, basically. This is Highlander Stormguard Trackway trousers. I can't remember how much these were. I think I just went for the cheapest ones. I used these for a trip last year. Well, it was after a trip last year where I had to borrow somebody else's because it was mountainous and wet, much like the last weekend was. So it's really good. I took them in the pouch, and they've got this little clip if you wanted to clip them onto the outside of anything you're carrying, so you can do that, and they're waterproof, so you haven't got to worry about them getting wet. So I took them in the pouch for the other reason was that it doubles up as a nice little seat. Just to put underneath your bum. It's just about the right size, and if you're not wearing them and you've got the trousers in there as well, it's actually padded as well. I also took this, which is just what was it, cotton? I don't actually know. Well, Cotton Traders, so it must be. Yeah, I took this. It's just a sort of fleecy rugby shirt, really. Quite warm, quite soft. It was a last minute thing that I put on before leaving the house, because we left at 6 o'clock in the morning, and it was still fairly cold, even though it was mid-August or towards the end of August, still fairly cold. So in the early hours, and I took that, and then as soon as I got into the woodland outside of Knighton, that went in my bag and I never saw it again. But I'm glad I took it, just for being comfortable in the morning. I did the majority of my filming either on my phone or using this. I really like this one. It's not the best, but it's still quite a good cheap camera. The strap itself, just a rudimentary strap that goes over your shoulders and around your waist, or around your midsection. And on that, which came out of a £10 accessory kit, and on that I've bolted on the waterproof case that came with the camera itself. This came into its own on top of the mountain when it was raining and it was too wet for me to have my phone out. Also on top of the mountain, it was too noisy for me to have my phone out because of the wind. Now, because this is encapsulated in a waterproof case, it usually means that the audio is unusable. But it was actually, you could still hear the wind a little bit through it. It was that windy, but it was a godsend that it was in there. And again, the waterproof case kept the rain off. So yeah, very good. Glad I took it. Right, now we'll go over the items that I carried on my person. So it wasn't a lot, but house keys, car keys, which of course you're going to take with you. Wallet. Again, and phone. I had these, they're Ration X sweets. Yeah, they're just cardboard sweets, really. I also took, and advise if you're going to do any of the trails that you do have a guidebook. I took the Glyndwr Way guidebook. Gives you instructions and little map fragments so you can see roundabout where you are on course, some illustrations and map pieces to look out for. Have a guidebook. Maps. I printed out in a plastic wallet to keep most of the wet off. It's been a week since and this is still a bit damp. But yeah, these are the printouts that I got, that I printed earlier in the week, so that I had an idea of where I was trekking. I zoomed in on Knighton because I wasn't sure how good the path was going to be. If you go on, use the web browser Bing, I think that's the one. When you're looking at maps, you can get your aerial views, like your satellite views. You can't, where I was looking, street view it. That's very much Google in this area. But you do have the option to flick it onto Ordnance Survey, which was useful seeing as I don't actually have the maps. The final item that I took with me was this. It's a cheap USB waterproof rechargeable torch. I think it was 2 for £12. I don't know the brand. I don't even know if it has a brand. Button on. Press again for not so bright. Then again for strobe. And then again for off. That and the zoom for focus is about the only function really. A little bit of advice for you, because there's no locking on this torch. If you want to keep it so that your torch doesn't turn on in your bag, turn the battery around, or you can insert a bit of plastic. But it's very good because you don't want your torch on wasting the battery when it's in your bag, and then when you come to use it you can't because you've wasted the battery. So there's a little tip. I took 4 litres with me, which was too much, I'll be honest. I'd read somewhere that it was, because it was an 8-hour journey, I'd need 4 litres of water, which was wrong. I don't think I got through 2, including the amount of water that I used to make my meal. This is just a standard cheap, there's a theme, cheap water bladder, probably the cheapest I could find, to be honest. Everything tasted a little bit plasticky, but it was okay. It's just a top fill jobby here. So if you hold it via this handle, actually I found if you held it from here it was easier to fill. And on my backpack strap there was a little holder, which I assume is for this. So I used that just to hold the thing in, the tube in place. You've got to be quite careful with these, because you can't get all the water out of them, and when you come to store it, well, it's not very good to use like still stagnant water ever, because of the bacteria and things in it. So my friend Graham suggested that you store it in your freezer. The hydration bladder that I have is goods to -20, so storing it in the freezer shouldn't be a problem. Another item that I took was this. It holds a litre. It's a triple tree 304 stainless steel, whatever that means. It actually comes with a carabiner which lives on my rucksack. This I stored in my backpack because I had plenty of room for it. It's single skinned, and the reason for that being that once I've taken the lid off, I could then put this in the fire and boil water if I wanted to on a camp. So this is the one in question. It was menu D there. Meatballs and pasta. So in here is it's supposed to be a field ration, so it's not a 24-hour ration pack. There's less food in it, but it should have been plenty for my trek, and to be honest it was, although I was glad of a hearty meal when I got home as well. Dessert cake, that was orange flavour. Snack bar, which we know is cookies and cream. Boiled sweets. Soft sweets. Not found the soft sweets clearly, but I saw some mints. A powdered drink, that was also orange flavour. It's basically powdered Lucozade that you drank out of its own pouch. That was the food. Out of the items that I took and used, I did want to use these and I needed them. I didn't want to use them before Glyndwr, but I knew that downhills would be my downfall on this trip. So there we go. These, again, are relatively inexpensive ones. I think I got by Trekrite, aluminium. So titanium is more expensive, but it is lighter. Also for this trip, I thought it'd be a good idea to get some luggage scales. So if we strap this around here, I'm curious to see how much these weighed. So just over half a kilo. They did come with a little case to keep them in. I tend not to bother using that if it's going to be going outside of my backpack. The same reason why I didn't take the case for my tripod is it was on the outside and water's not going to do them any damage. So yeah, that's everything we used. Now let's move on to everything that I could have left behind. Firstly, as mentioned, and I'll use this one with me because it was 2 litres of water that I took that was too much. So they can go there, but I took the Sawyer Mini squeeze system. I've given up since the camp of using a rigid bottle. Just going to use this one here, which holds 16 ounces, which I guess is probably about 500 ml. It says the pouch there, obviously screws onto the Sawyer bottle itself, the Sawyer filter itself even. Then there's a straw if you wanted to drink straight out of the water source. And the backwashing syringe, which arguably I didn't need to take. But I'll be honest, I don't know how often you need to backwash these things. I just bought a cheap one, I think it's about £5 off Amazon. And then I've since added a few bits to it. But you just never know, and because I was going on my own, not taking that, I mean, it would have been a bit silly more than anything. In there I've got some chapstick, which again I suppose isn't first aid, but it's something I've added to it. There's another torch, just an emergency non-rechargeable. I like rechargeable torches usually, but this is just a cheap one that I had lying around. It's quite heavy actually, I might change that. But it's by Rolston. Hasn't gone wrong in all the years I've had, and it's had a knock or two. It's not the best torch, it's not very bright, but it'll be bright enough for rummaging through your first aid kit. And then in here as well I've got some tablets for upset stomach. I've got in here as well waterproof safety matches, the combat ones, which I've lit most fires out of. So that's the last case scenario, worst case scenario. Hay fever tablets and general paracetamol. I take this almost every time I go somewhere outdoorsy, whether it's a camp or a hike or anything, even a bike ride. It doesn't weigh a lot, and it's got a few essentials in there should I run into any problems. A few more items I won't go into too much depth on because I've talked about them several times already. But here is my fold-away little stove. I've since got a bigger stick stove now, so I'm looking forward to trying that out. It came all wrapped in that blue stuff, which is annoying. But I'll go over that another time. But yeah, this is my folding twig stove that I've used. If you see my other videos, you'll know all about that. It was to go with this Trangia burner. It's just a burner that takes methylated spirits. That's quite the fierce boil. For my beverages, so I took quite a lot of things so I could have a hot beverage, which I didn't end up having. So, although in winter that would be very useful. I have got here my Alexander cup. Inside there, I tend not to drink out of this because it's hot on your mouth. And if it's just been in the fire, there's usually a flavour to it that's not so great. But I use this folding cup. Finally, to do with my tea preparation. Yes, I know, I took a lot of stuff, didn't I? In here I've got my fire pouch, or what I'm using at the moment as a fire pouch. Got my ferro rod, which chucks sparks using the striker. That's very handy for lighting the methylated spirits. I took this compass. It doesn't weigh anything, it's very cheap. I could have used the compass that's built in on the phone, but redundancies, and like I say, it doesn't weigh anything, and it's no bigger than a 50p really. Like I say, I didn't use it, but it would have been handy if I got lost. Tissue paper, not just for runny noses, and I'll leave it at that. Didn't use them for anything though. I also took this. I tend to take this everywhere with me as well. It's a handy little light for reading with at night. It's quite powerful as well. Takes 3 of those like button-shaped batteries. Are they LR44s or something? I forget what they're called. That's a Lumo light on a carabiner. It's quite good. You can just clip it to the outside of your pack. It also has an SOS whistle, which is a lot better than the one on the pack. Also, I didn't know what with wind how much of this I'd get through, so I took the full ½ litre. It's a folding shovel. That's actually got a compass built into it as well. And the last item is this. You'll have seen me use the Olight head torch on the last camp, and that would be my go-to. The only reason I took this was, one, I didn't think I'd need a light, because it wouldn't have got dark for about 4 hours after I finished, but you never know. If I'd have got lost or trapped or injured or delayed or whatever, and it's getting dark, it might have been useful to have a headlight. There's the main beam, there's a dimmer beam, there's a help me strobe, and there's also an infrared. So I don't know what use that would have. Oh, it's infrared for on and infrared for off. That's quite nice actually. So while you're working, you don't have to fumble around to try and find your power button. You just wave your hand in front of it and it's off. And then, oh, you need it back on? Wave your hand in front. I like that, that's a good function. I've tared the weight of the backpack on the luggage strap now, and I could have saved myself 3.5 kilos. Roughly. So that was everything that I took with me that I needed or didn't need for the Glyndwr Way Part 1. So I'll know for next time. Obviously, if there's no chance of rain, although this is Wales, I won't need to take the waterproof, so I'll save there. Hopefully, before my next walk, I have got a new backpack on order. It's a 35 litre. Which will be a lot better for day trips. I'll still use this one for overnighters and camps and things because it's really good for that. But otherwise, I'll be using the other pack. Thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed this pack review video, then leave a thumbs up. I won't do this for everything I do. I just thought it'd be quite interesting to show you and showcase some of the gear that you may not have seen before as well. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye!